This is why we have these live stream shows. We've had Jacob deGrom get scratched, and the weather in Cincinnati looks fun. So my top two pitchers from this morning are now completely in flux. So let's talk this thing out and try to decipher how to play this slate now that we know more than we knew this morning. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to take a look at tonight's slate, and it's not just that, but also lock has been moved up. Lock is now at 6:30 this evening because of the Nationals taking on the Orioles. They are finishing up a suspended game first, then doing another game after that. So you may not know who's starting for the Nationals and the Orioles. We don't know what the weather situation looks like for Cincinnati, and we know that Jacob deGrom is no longer on this slate. What more could you possibly ask for from a Friday night? So I'm sure a lot of you have plenty of questions for today. Feel free to put those in the YouTube chat section. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can. Also taking questions via Facebook and Twitch if that is where you're watching. So wherever you are consuming this thing, make sure you put the questions in there. We'll try to get to as many as we can. As of right now, I think the Cincinnati thing is the biggest question. We know that Walker Lockett is going to start in place of Jacob deGrom. You can stack against Lockett, so I think that fire away there if you would like to. Outside of that, there is a disconnect in what we're seeing in Cincinnati, because if we go to numberFire, which pulls from dark sky weather, and you look at the weather here, the rain odds don't look all that high. It's a similar story if you go to weather.com. However, Kevin Roth, who is a literal meteorologist and would know weather a whole heck of a lot better than I would, is saying that this game has a chance of being postponed, and there is a second batch of rain that will be coming through. I don't know when the last time this was updated was, so I'm assuming that Kevin will have an update later on. I can't give you, he's going to know weather better than I will. Based on what Kevin is saying, I'm inclined to avoid Sonny Gray, despite the fact that he was going to be my cash game pitcher for tonight. If I go based on what dark sky weather says, based on what we pull at numberFire, then I think Sonny Gray is great, especially when we take Jacob deGrom out of the equation. So there are a lot of different competing things going on here. It's a pretty complicated slate. So honestly, I don't have great answers as far as Sonny Gray goes. So we'll talk through some different options. If you have questions about pitchers, put those over on YouTube. We got a couple over here right now. So let's start things off with Mateo. Mateo says, how is Patrick Sandoval versus batters from both sides of the plate? Great question. Let's look. Okay, so we go with Patrick Sandoval here on FanGraphs. Alrighty. The problem we're going to have with Patrick Sandoval is that he doesn't have big samples. Sandoval is facing the Dodgers. So we're not using Sandoval as a pitcher. This is just seeing what Sandoval looks like as far as batters facing him go. I am not super inclined to use batters facing Sandoval because pretty good numbers in his career, 25% strikeout rate, a lot of swinging strikes for Sandoval too. So that definitely does scare me a bit when it comes to opposing batters. But to answer Mateo's questions, let's dig in here and look at his career splits by handedness. Again, pretty small sample regardless of which split you're looking at here. But if we look here, Sandoval against righties, 25% strikeout rate is 22% versus lefties. Righties have a 48% hard hit rate, so a lot of hard contact, but also a lot of ground balls. So based on the way things look here, I am not super enthused about using batters facing Sandoval. I know that the Dodgers have a tremendous offense. That's why I won't use Sandoval as a pitcher. But I think that there is enough here where I probably won't go at the Dodgers as hitters either. How about Aaron Cevalle? This is coming from Jason over on YouTube as well. Let's check out Cevalle. He has really good numbers in 2020, but his overall numbers, the larger sample in Cevalle, is something that doesn't make me as enthusiastic. The other problem that I have with Cevalle is that he's pretty expensive. He's $9,600 on FanDuel for tonight. That's less of a concern now that Jacob deGrom is out of the equation, and Sonny Gray may be as well. But I think that it's still, there's a little bit left to be desired. Now, when you look at Cevalle in 2020, it's a 3-start sample and a 31% strikeout rate. That's really good, especially when paired with a 3% walk rate. The problem is this number. His swinging strike rate is 11.2%, and the rule of thumb with swinging strike rate is that you double it to get a projected strikeout rate. Swinging strike rate, at least I think, tends to stabilize more quickly because think about it in terms of sample size. If we have one start a pitcher will throw 100 pitches, and that means his swing and strike rate is based on a sample of 100 pitches. If you look at his strikeout rate in that one start, it's a sample of like 25 to 27-ish hitters, and that's a much smaller number. So the number that stabilizes more quickly is a swing and strike rate. And for Cevalle, it's a bit lower at 11.2% than his strikeout rate. So my inclination is to believe that Cevalle's strikeout rate will come down as the sample expands. That scares me a bit, especially when he's at $9,600. The sample I have on Cevalle for my sheet for today, this is, okay, Cevalle right there. We have 7 starts when he's been throwing his changeup more often, 24% strikeout rate, and a 7% walk rate, 4.16 skill interactive ERA. Not great numbers, does get a major boost from facing the Tigers, 81 WRC plus for them and a 26% strikeout rate. So if Cevalle were facing a lesser opponent, I think I'd be super inclined, if you were a lower salary, I think I'd be super inclined to go there because then that 24% strikeout rate is less of a concern. But he's $9,600, and I think that's a little pricey for a guy whose strikeout rate is, I would say the word flimsy. I don't know if that's like being too harsh, but I think that I don't know if it's going to stay where it's at. He has done this against, the Twins are a good team. The White Sox strike out quite a bit, so I don't know. I think that Cevalle is probably the toughest guy for me to decipher on this slate. I am in favor of using him. I do not think that he is someone I am jumping out of my way to use. And he's not within my top couple of pitchers for tonight, despite the fact we have the shakiness around DeGrom and potentially around Gray when it comes to the weather. So Cevalle, I think that you kind of go based on your gut. My gut says I'm going to rank him lower on my list and potentially still get there depending on how thin I go at pitcher. But if you feel more strong towards him, I don't see a lot of things that push me entirely away. I'm just displeased with the salary. Yevgeny is asking, thoughts on Framber Valdez, extreme ground ball guy. So Valdez is facing the Mariners. That is a good matchup here. We see he is $8,600. Valdez, the sample I have on him is right here. Okay, he has cut out his four-seam fastball this year. He said, so this is over 10 outings and 5 of which have been starts with that four-seam fastball usage being down, 24% strikeout rate, 13% walk rate. That's a little bit concerning. Why did I click on Julio Teheran? How did I get there? I put the wrong link in the Framber Valdez thing. Okay, well, let's just go there manually then, because why make things easy? We can instead make them hard. All right, Framber Valdez. The issue that I tend to have with him is the walk rate. The walk rate being as high as it is definitely scary. So I think that that's why I'm probably not going to go there. Yeah, this year the walk rate has been better for Valdez, but last year 13%. He had pretty high walk rates in the minors as well. I think that Valdez is an option, but again, the issue that I have is that there are other guys I like a lot more in this exact same range. I like Frankie Montas more facing the Giants. I like Brandon Woodruff facing the Cubs. And he who shall not be named, I like more facing the Brewers too. So Valdez, interesting, but the walk rate a bit too high. Not totally sold on the strikeout rate being all that great, so he's lower on my list. Oh, Montas scratch now. What in the world is going on here? My goodness. Okay. We'll get to that in a second. Alvin says, do you like the Padres or the Astros stack? Padres I'm not super into. Merrill Kelly's kind of good, so I don't think I want to go with the Padres, although I've been burned by not stacking the Padres several times this year, so maybe it goes against me, but I'm not super into them personally for tonight. Astros. The Astros are facing Yusei Kikuchi. Kikuchi's been pretty good this year. I know the results have been bad. That was mostly due to one bad start, but a 3.62 skill interactive ERA, 26% strikeout rate, not allowing a lot of hard contact. The velocity's been really good. We know the Astros, some guys banged up. Altuve had sat out a couple days ago. George Springer still he came back, but that wrist not totally healthy. So I think I'm not super interested in stacking the Astros here. Josh asks, would you like Chatwood if you were around 7,000 rather than 8,000, what about Lynn in Colorado? So, Josh, I am into Chatwood despite the fact that he's $8,200 against my better judgment. Again, he is he who shall not be named, despite the fact that Chatwood got rocked last time out, still has a 2.76 skill interactive ERA this year, 35% strikeout rate. The issue that I think that Chatwood's going to run into is that he's allowing a lot of hard contact so far this year, and a lot of it's in the air. So I think what we're going to, like, if I were projecting what our thoughts would be on Tyler Chatwood at the end of the year, my thought would be, okay, he is a high upside pitcher who has a lot of volatility. Based on the profile we've seen from him so far this year, a lot of strikeouts, but also a good amount of, or at least more hard contact and no ground balls relative to last year. So I'm guessing that cutter is probably getting lofted quite a bit. So I would guess that in retrospect, we'll look at Tyler Chatwood and say, hey, he's this guy who can have big games, but can also get rocked. I am okay with that volatility because, I don't know, like I like risk apparently, and I like losing money every now and then. But I think that if you are more risk averse as a DFS player and you don't want to go through those lumps, Tyler Chatwood's not going to be for you. I think that in that situation, you go with Brandon Woodruff, who is also pretty volatile, but I think that he definitely works. But I think that for me personally, I will go to Chatwood. So if you were 7,000, I'd be into it. Lance Lynn, I think is interesting. He's at Coors Field, which stinks, but the Rockies suck. He has a 3.44 skill interactive ERA. What is the sample here? He's been using a cutter more often. Okay, so using more cutters, and this is over his, I think it's 8 starts? Yeah, 8 starts. I don't know why I hyperlinked all that. Anyway, 3.44 skill interactive ERA, 34% strikeout rate, 36% earned rate is not all that bad. He does allow a lot of fly balls, so there is the potential that that Lynn could just get destroyed. Which is why I can't put him as a top-end pitcher. But I think that Lynn is worth some exposure, potentially, if you want to change things up. I think that, like, if we're ranking risk guys, which to me is Chatwood and Lynn, I would go Chatwood over Lynn. But I'm not totally opposed to Lance Lynn. The Rockies, a 22% strikeout rate versus righties, 84 WRC+. Like, if you took them out of Coors Field, they would be basically the Tigers. So I think Lynn is okay. I'd prefer Chatwood over him if we're okay with going risk. I'd go Woodruff over them both, but I think it's a consideration for sure. Okay. Yeah, everyone is very sad about Frankie Montas. I haven't seen, because I didn't see this, so thank you for letting me know that Montas got scratched. I haven't seen who is starting in place of Montas. I'm guessing they're probably not going to be an option because it would probably be like probably Daniel Mengden if I had to guess. If I had to bet, it's probably going to be Daniel Mengden starting for the Athletics. With Montas being scratched, that's not going to interest me. So it's probably just a situation where we're not going to go at the pitcher. So no DeGrom, no Montas, potentially no Sonny Gray, depending on what the weather looks like there. Getting real thin real quick. But even with those things being considered, I do still like, this is actually Spencer Howard starting for the Phillies, but they're basically piggybacking, so it doesn't actually matter. I do still like Garrett Cole against the Red Sox. I'm okay with him despite a tough matchup. I think Cevalle is okay. I'm okay with that. If we get weather clearance in Sonny Gray, I would say go forth for sure. I like Woodruff quite a bit. I like Chatwood a decent amount. Lynn, consideration, I would say. Rest in peace, Frankie Montas there. So I don't know. It's a tough one. Steven Strasburg, I could see people considering him. The reason I'm not there is that he went 69 pitches in his first start. Probably not fully stretched out yet. He's facing the Orioles, who are a pretty low strikeout team. So Strasburg, not a super high consideration for me. But I think between Cole, Woodruff, Chatwood, Cevalle, and was there someone else we were talking about before? I think between those guys, we still got good pitching options, just not as fun. Oh, it's Jesus Luzardo starting in place of Frankie Montas. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay, let's pull up Jesus Luzardo's page then. I did not expect it to be him. I kind of thought they would just go with Mengden as like a fill-in start here. Okay, so Luzardo last started on Sunday, so he's pitching on full rest here. Let's see the pitch counts for Jesus Luzardo, see what he's been doing out there for the A's, see if his pitch count is fully worked up yet. This is why we have this show. Why not do things on the fly? Okay, so Luzardo, 89 pitches back on Sunday. That's not too bad. My hope is that he kind of knew about this in advance. I mean, it'd be annoying, like, because I would like to know in advance if he knew in advance. But like, my hope is that he knew because, like, as a pitcher, I feel like there's a lot of mental preparation to get set to start. So my hope would be that Luzardo knew in advance that this is a possibility that he could be asked to pitch. Because if it wasn't, then that's a little scary for sure. And that would give me some reservations about going with Jesus Luzardo. But I feel like if they're going to throw him out there, I actually got a question about Jason from Lumet. I will get to that in a second. But yeah, I think he's worth discussing. But 89 pitches is enough for Jesus Luzardo for me to be interested. Swinging strike rates for him have been really good. 10.1% is not what you want, but it came against Houston. That's pretty good. Okay, so Luzardo, I think Jesus Luzardo is actually worth discussing. I think he's worth considering here. So we're going to uncheck probable pitchers because he wouldn't be probable on this one. Jesus Luzardo, $6,400. Whoo! He's facing the Giants. He is in San Francisco. Okay. So Jesus Luzardo, $6,400. We have the uncertainty around knowing. We don't know what his situation was. Like, did he know beforehand he'd be starting? How long has he known that he'd be starting for tonight? We have that uncertainty, but $6,400. He is facing the Giants in San Francisco. As mentioned this morning, it's a little bit hotter today in San Francisco than usual, so it's not as much of a pitcher's park as it usually would be, but still, it is a pitcher-friendly park regardless. The Giants against lefties since the start of last year, keep in mind that like they're a very platoon-heavy team, so 99 WRC plus, but a 23% strikeout rate, not a lot of walks. It's a plus matchup. So I think Jesus Luzardo is a very good option. I know that it could be a bit dicey because we haven't seen him get a full leash yet this year. We have not seen him put up a really big number. But again, in the one start we had where he had a full pitch count, it came against the Astros. And 2 runs over 5 2/3 innings against that team is pretty darn good. So I say thumbs up on Jesus Luzardo. I'd put him above Lance Lynn if we're ranking guys here. I think that he's right by Chatwood, I would say. I think that they're pretty much on par with each other. I think that's where I'm going to put Jesus Luzardo. So I would say that he's in that range for me for tonight. I know someone asked about the Cleveland stack. I'll get to that in a second, Alvin. I do want to touch on Dinelson Lumet first. Lumet is facing the Diamondbacks. Dinelson Lumet's really good. There are 2 reasons that Lumet hasn't been super high on my list. He'll be higher now because everyone else is just going up in flames, but the reasons that I wasn't as high on him are A, the Diamondbacks are not a high strikeout team, 22% versus righties. And the other thing is that his pitch counts have been low. You see here 80, 91, 84, 83. Those aren't super high. So that is a reason to be a little bit lower on Dinelson Lumet. However, like we said, good strikeout rate. The Diamondbacks, despite not being a high strikeout team, are not a team that I necessarily fear. Okay, he's facing the Diamondbacks for the second straight start. That's a minor mark against him, but he's been good this year. We've seen him be good for a pretty decent sample at this point, 15.1% swinging strike rate so far this year. So I think if we're thinking about Lumet now in the context of this slate, given everyone who has dropped out, I think that Lumet is probably on par with Woodruff. I feel better with Woodruff's pitch count, I guess. So that's why I put Woodruff first still. Maybe that's a mistake on my part, but I do still feel better about Woodruff. Good at getting ground balls, good at limiting hard contact. Let's see if a Cubs lineup has come out yet because Chris Bryant is out again. Yeah, no Chris Bryant. So that's arrows up there for Brandon Woodruff. So I still put Brandon Woodruff ahead of Dinelson Lumet now that we are viewing this in a new context, but I think that Lumet on par with Chatwood because Chatwood has pitch count concerns too because he could get bombed. So, okay, let's just totally reset here. Pitcher rankings for tonight. Cole is 1. This is assuming that Sonny Gray's weather is still bad because if Sonny Gray's weather is okay, then I would say fire away on Sonny Gray. Let's rhyme a little bit. I would say let's assume weather's okay for Sonny Gray. Gray 1, Cole 2, Woodruff 3, Lumet 4, Chatwood 5, Luzardo 6, and then probably Lance Lynn there. I don't know if that helps. we're talking a lot here, but I think that's the way I do it for tonight. Okay, let's get back to Alvin, who asked favorite bats from a Cleveland stack. Okay, so Cleveland's order, I believe, is out. Okay, yes. Okay, so pretty much exactly as expected, except Tyler Naquin is batting 6th. Interesting. Did not expect that. Tyler Naquin, I kind of forgot existed as a human being, but hey, let's check out Tyler Naquin here. Pull him up, batting 6th. That's not that bad. Okay. Tyler Naquin, what's his salary? Let's check that out too. Tyler Naquin is $2,000. His minimum salary. Okay, I can get behind that. Naquin has had some stolen base juice in the past. Hasn't had a lot of plate appearances this year. Did cut down on his strikeout rates over the past couple of years. Because Tyler Naquin's been like totally out of my consciousness for like a couple of years now. So trying to reacclimate myself with him. But not actually that bad of numbers. So, okay. I actually think that Tyler Naquin at $2,000 is going to be a really solid play. So let's go with Tyler Naquin in, let's get Luzardo out of it. Let's go with a Garrett Cole lineup because why not? Garrett Cole. Let's put Tyler Naquin in there. Whoops. Narc. Whoops. That's not right. Tyler Naquin, and that puts it to 31.43. Okay. I can live with that. That's pretty solid. Let's scroll here to Cleveland. Okay. I could have just looked at this, see his salary, but I didn't. They've had a lot of struggles so far this year. So I think that we do need to actually put some stock into the numbers we've seen out of Cleveland, specifically in 2020. So let's go to Cleveland here. And let's change this sample to be from 2020 or 2019 to 2020 to be just 2020. Thank you to Fangraphs for making all this very easy on me. Okay. Framil Reyes, 33% strikeout rate, no walks against righties, 43% hard hit rate, 22% fly ball rate. That's pretty gross. Those are not great numbers. 34% walk rate for Carlos Santana. My goodness, this is a weird team. I think that Jose Ramirez, if you can find a way to get to him, is probably number 2 with regards to the batters on Cleveland. I think that he's probably number 2. So let's put him in here, see how much trouble that gets me in here. Yeah, that's still not bad. Okay, so we can actually do this. Let's go with second base is terrible. Cesar Hernandez is not the profile player I like to use on FanDuel, but I feel like I kind of still have to go there despite the fact that I don't like his profile, just because second base is generally so bad. So I'm going to put him in there. And then I'd say it's between Lindor and Santana. And I would say if I am filling out this Cleveland stack right now, what I do is I leave that 4th player in the stack open and then put them in based on what my other stack is. So if you need a first baseman, go Santana. If you need a shortstop, go Lindor, based on that. So I would say these are the top 3 guys for me within this Cleveland stack right now. If you can find the second baseman you like, I would kick Cesar out there pretty quickly. But for right now, given the fact that second base tends to be pretty terrible, I would put Cesar in there. Because this has been kind of a weird stream, I'm going to give an additional couple of minutes. So if you have any additional questions you want to get in there, whether it be on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, feel free to shoot those over. I'll try to get to a couple more. It's just been a weird stream today because of all the funkiness of pitcher with both the Grom and Montas being scratched. Scrolling through the lineups here, it doesn't look like the Rangers lineup has been released. Just kidding. Haha, refresh. I like Kiner Falefa. He's $3,100, batting second, can get some steals. He's not a great super high upside hitter, but I think he works in there. Willie Calhoun is the cover boy of this stream, so I gotta like Willie Calhoun. Joey Gallo, hit it to the moon. What is Todd Frazier's salary? Let's actually check that out. I actually have no idea what Todd Frazier is because I didn't consider the fact that he was, he's been playing a bunch, so I guess I didn't really think about him. Okay, $3,400, fills third base. Because he's third base, I don't, feel as drawn towards him. Wrong tab. Solak is okay. So I think if I'm ranking Rangers, I would go, Gallo and Chu are obviously 1 and 2. When I consider salary, I'd probably go Calhoun up there. But I think that you can definitely make this work. Solak, I think, is pretty cheap as well. Let's just look at Rangers in general here. Solak is 36. Oof, okay. Calhoun is only $3,300, so I definitely like that. So I would say Calhoun is my number one guy within this Rangers stack. Salary considered, I go Gallo 2, Chu 3, and then go after that. Okay, new stack rankings. Actually, let's get to Donna first because it's a pitcher one. We're finish up with stacks. Is Cole good for GPPs? Yes. I like Garrett Cole for tournaments. I know the Red Sox are not a high strikeout team, but Garrett Cole says he fixed something in his mechanics his last time out. Looked really good. 42% strikeout rate. So right now, Donna, Garrett Cole is my number one pitcher for tournaments for tonight. That could change if Sonny Gray gets an all clear from a weather perspective, but as of right now, I would say Cole is number one for me. Ranking stacks, I would say Rangers are still number one. I would say Cleveland is number two. I would say the Phillies might be number three. We'll go Yankees number four in that Red Sox game against the Red Sox bullpen. I'll go with Twins 5. I think that I'm good stopping there. So that's the top 5 stacks. Thoughts on a Yankee stack from Michael? Yes, I am in favor of a Yankee stack. They're facing the bullpen of the Red Sox, which basically is guys who didn't make the starting rotation for a team that has an actively bad rotation. So I do think that the Yankee stack is a very good idea for tonight. Let's see if we can find a lineup here. Nope. Okay. That's weird. So no lineup for the Yankees yet, but I do think that they're in play. I like Aaron Hicks a lot. I like Gleyber Torres a lot. Luke Voigt's pretty good too if you need some salary savings there. Final question from Twitch. What's the top twin stack for you? The Twins lineup is out, so we can look at this. Jorge Polanco needs to be in my top twin stack. The one thing I'd say, I think it's Justin. The one thing I would say is that, Alvin, I did forget about the A's. The A's are a good stack too. I'd put them lower just because the park is still bad, but I do think that they're still in play. Twin stack depends on what you have. If you need value, Polanco, Gonzalez, Garver are the top 3 guys, and then kind of just fill it in from there based on what you need. If you are going with, like, let's say you're going Jesus Luzardo, give me Nelson Cruz, give me Eddie Rosario, give me Max Kepler, and I'll still put Polanco in there because straight up he is one of the better plays. So depends on what you need, but Jorge Polanco will be in that stack regardless. Final thing from Alvin again, pushing the A's down just because the Mets or the Phillies became a better stack. So I think that's the main reason that I push them down, but they're still a consideration, just not within the top echelon for me. Okay, so that is all that we have for today. I got to let Cal get off to his weekend plans, but do want to thank you all for tuning in, asking really good questions. I know this is kind of a chaotic stream, but hey, that's why we're here, to answer questions as they pop up at the last minute. We are back with you next week on Monday with the stream in the morning with the solo shot, and then again in the afternoon at 4 p.m. So make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube page to make sure you get notifications as we go live each and every day. We also do PGA and NASCAR podcasts on here. So make sure you are subscribed also on Twitch and on Facebook. And want to thank you all for tuning in. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for the video side of things here today. As always, thank you, Cal. If you have questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. Good luck to all of you tonight. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll talk to you once again on Monday. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.